My name is Roshni, and I like to evangelize on social media. And I was born and raised in a Hindu family, and I was saved in 2023 from so many things. And it's just been my life since then has been like complete shift. And I'm here to share my testimony, and I'm really glad, Tasha, you've invited me on here. So thank you for having me. So I was obviously born and raised in a Hindu household, and my parents were religious, and my extended family were all really religious, and especially my grandmother, she was really like committed into Hinduism. She had like her own mass. She had actually a really big like Hindu temple in her house, like that was like sort of built. Everything was in it, statues, the whole lot. And when I used to sometimes see her, like when I used to go and stay there, I'd admire that, to be fair, like how committed she was and how even the way she used to carry herself, she was like her morals were good, her values were good. She was a really lovely lady and I love her to pieces. And I used to admire how committed she was to her faith and everything. And with my mum as well, like she was a committed Hindu, and she used to often like teach me about some of the stories from the Hindu, the holy book that we used to read. And even my dad's family, they were super religious, so I'd say back then I had a good set of people around me that encouraged me. As I was growing up, like something was just missing in my heart. But as I was growing up, I experienced a lot of like childhood trauma, and even when I went through like secondary school, I used to go through a lot of bullying, and I really struggled with like my self-esteem, and I was insecure about myself and just everything in general. And that sort of caused me to be the kind of person that was quite timid and very like shy to speak in public to people. So even like in family settings and stuff, I'd be very quiet compared to everybody else because I just felt like I just had that really, I just had really bad anxiety as well, that it just sort of topped it all up for me. And often people would like tell me like, you're really shy, like you should talk more, you should be more confident, like this person, like this person. And that used to really knock me as well, because I'm thinking like, how do I even become like that person? Like, how do I genuinely come out my shell and be such a bold person and be able to talk? And I felt like that just sort of pushed me back even more. Experience further trauma in my teens, and I went through a lot of like mental health problems. I had like really bad emotional breakdowns, and it really affected me like as I was going into my 20s as well, because I viewed myself in a way like that the Lord doesn't view me as, but I viewed myself in a really awful way where I would see that I was just like an object. I wasn't somebody with a heart or somebody that had value or somebody that had purpose in life. I viewed myself as this object that was just like following a religion, and basically making myself an object for men. And I did experience like a few accounts of like sexual abuse and things like that. And I just felt that when I went through those things in my religion, no matter what I did, praying, like saying like chants and mantras, meditations, speaking to like priests, going to like the Hindu temples, it's called a mandir, and that's where I used to always go with family and stuff. Any like events that people had at home, like there's a thing called like it's called pujas, and it's basically like a Hindu ritual that people carry out at home, like to like I'm not actually entirely sure what it's for, but it is literally really ritualistic. And I even went to all of those things, and I felt every time I went to those things, honestly, I felt so like isolated. I didn't feel like I was like I felt like I didn't belong in these places. That's how I felt, but I couldn't put my finger on why. And like even through all the things that I went through, I still followed Hinduism and did everything, but just like nothing happened. No matter how much praying, I couldn't hear no voice from any god. I couldn't hear nothing. It was just silence. At the time, I didn't think like this, to be honest. I just continued because my family encouraged me to, and I just felt I was just conditioned to believe in that. Like we get born and we're just sort of like conditioned to believe in something where we haven't experienced any like presence of God or any heart transformation or a relationship. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just kind of like works. We're doing works to get to God, to get an approval by God, and to keep our parents happy, to stay in tradition, to stay in like religion and all of that. And I was doing all of those things, and I didn't see no like heart posture change following for the last years. And why has nothing helped me in my life to change, like the way I approach situations, the way I speak to people, the way I don't get angry and things like that? Because I was a very angry person as well in my 20s because of everything. And I wanted change. I wanted freedom. I wanted to be like full of peace and calmness. I was desperate for like this like healing that I just knew that can be found, but it just wasn't in Hinduism. And I wanted to know if there was a way in Hinduism. And I dived into that. And then I got really deep into like new age witchcrafty practices and stuff like that. At the time, I didn't know it was witchcraft. And even now, like I'm so passionate to talk about new age and sort of expose it for what it really, really is.
Yeah.
I was into like tarot card reading. I was into like crystals, like manifesting in the universe, angel numbers, literally the whole lot, everything. Um, I was so deep into that stuff that I would literally push that on other people as well. And the funny thing is, like when I was into those things and when like I kind of made it really apparent to people that this is what I'm into, new age, and it really helps you like know your inner self and your divine self and all of this, like I didn't realize at the time I was worshipping myself. Like I was literally like subtly I had such a pride that was hiding in me and an ego to worship myself, and I didn't even realize it. It didn't look like I was doing that, but I actually was, because I kind of like put myself on this pedestal above a creator that actually created me. And
Mhm.
I was doing all of these ritualistic stuff. Even like my parents don't even know half the stuff that I was doing with New Age. It was crazy. And I used to encourage people into like star signs, and that this is their characteristic and this is how it should be. Like, you need to find somebody that's compatible with you, like because it aligns and with the stars and the houses, all of it. And now when I think about like literally when I think back at it, I think what nonsense was what nonsense was I indulging myself in, literally. So I was so big on that. And I also, after that, became an atheist because I gave up, and I felt that I was hitting rock bottom even more. Toward like even when I was in my new age stuff, like I was getting more depressed, I was getting more anxiety, I was struggling with PTSD a lot more than I was, and I emotionally I was breaking inside, but I didn't know that the reason for that was because I was in New Age. I just thought New Age would constantly help me to be a pick me up and help me, but I didn't realize that actually New Age was like a temporary fix. So I now know that obviously the devil works in a way where he'll dangle something in front of you, and it's not a permanent like healing, or it's not a permanent change. It's a temporary change. So whatever I used to do with my pendulum and all of this sort of stuff, like for maybe what about a month or two, I would be feeling this insane amount of peace. I'll be feeling like clarity. I'll be feeling all of these good things that people want, right? But after like 2 or 3 months, that would just die down. It would crash, and I would be like at rock bottom. And then I'd go back to what I was doing, thinking that, oh, I need this fix. It will help me. And it helped me. And it's like an addiction, like a drug addiction. He makes you addicted to these things. And now when I
Mhm.
see like people in new age practices, it's like that. I see a lot of them now say that, well, I'm a witch, or I'm doing all of this, and you'll get sleep paralysis. It adds up, but they can't see that that's the cause of what they're doing. I used to get really bad sleep paralysis as well, to the point where I could see like black shadows in my room, like in the corner of my room, and
Mhm.
I could see things moving and like things shifting around my room. And when I talk about this to people, they think I'm crazy. And I'm just like, do I go back to Hinduism? Is this because I've literally left a faith that my parents taught me about and that I grew up in, like literally? So I did go back into Hinduism, and I was committed this time. Like I was really committed. I studied it, I tried to understand it better, but it just wasn't hitting the nail on my head. It wasn't doing anything. So I was just like, I don't understand what's going on. Why am I suffering like this? And I used to blame God in this moment, where I had this hate and mockery for God at this point, where I was just like, you must hate me so much that you're putting me through all of this suffering. You've put me through all of these things that are not helping me. And I just blamed him endlessly. I had so much like hatred for God. I had hate for religion. I had hate for people's faiths, because I'm thinking, you guys are just literally so like blind. Like, why can't you just live your life? Be free. You don't have to follow something in order to like live and stuff like that. I was really, really spiritually blind back then. And then I used to mock Christians, be really like judgmental. And I felt like if I was to go up to a Christian back then, they would totally judge me for what I'm living in, and they'd condemn me for it, and they'd be really nasty about it at the time. And I used to think they were so like traditional, and they were really like stuck by the book, and they were following laws. And I would think they were literally a bunch of people that were just inside a box, basically. That's what I would be thinking. Say out of every faith back then, Christianity was probably like the one that I just disliked the most. When I got this invitation to go to church, it was actually my mum that invited me, to be honest. I was so reluctant to go in. And I remember I literally mocked her for inviting me. I was just like, why are you literally inviting me to this nonsense place? Like, I don't believe in this stuff. Like, what are you doing? That you know this. I remember myself being so stubborn. So I was like, I will not set foot in a church. That is the last place you'll find me in, literally. Set foot in this church. And like this like I don't know how to explain. It was like this kind of peace. Like it was a peace that I just hadn't experienced at all in my life. I think it was a kind of peace that I maybe thought that I had, but I actually didn't have it. It was like a counterfeit peace that I was probably carrying in my life. But this peace that I had, it just washed over me like a blanket. It's like this fresh blanket that just sort of washed over me, and I felt like this like shift in my heart happen. I didn't think anything of it when I walked in, so I carried on. And the pastor that was in the church, she was preaching things from the Bible, and then she said that if anybody wants prayer, come up to the front. And there wasn't a lot of people in the church. It was a very small church, very like it wasn't really. It's just a room. It's just a room basically, like with a stage. It was very tiny. There was probably about 10 or 8 to 10 people in there at least. I went in there, and she basically said, if anybody wants prayer, come to the front and we'll pray for you. And I went to the front, but I felt like now when I think about it, I felt like I was actually being led to go to the front by the Holy Spirit. And I went to the front, and she started praying for me. And instantly I started, like, my body just started shaking, and I just started crying so much. Like, I didn't know what started the crying. And it was like a kind of crying where everything was coming out. I've cried so much in my life, and I've been thinking, like, every time I finish crying, oh yeah, everything's out. I've let everything out. But this was like a different type of like crying. It was like it was like from the root, everything was just coming out. And I was crying my eyes out like a baby uncontrollably. And then I had to sit on the floor because my body, I had no control of my body. My body was shaking. My body was like rocking back and forwards. And I had my eyes like shut so tightly. It's like I was trying to like focus on something. I could hear what she was saying. And the funny thing is like I felt as well like in my body, I felt like something was tugging me backwards. And then I also felt like this other force in front of me, like pulling me forward. It was kind of like a now when I think about it, it was like a battlefield or something. It's like the enemy was trying to like pull me back, and then the Holy Spirit was trying to pull me forward. It was like I was like in the middle of a fight. And it was insane. It was absolutely insane. And after all of that happened, I stopped shaking, I stopped crying, and then I felt this like shift in my heart. It was like something had just been ripped out of me. That's how I felt. And I was like in this really peaceful kind of like, not sleep, but I was like, my eyes were closed, but I was like in this really peaceful sort of like trance. It was beautiful. And then when I opened my eyes, the lady that was praying for me, she was like, "How do you feel?" Like, she goes, "How do you feel?" Because I saw everything that happened. And I said to her, I said, "I don't know. I feel like a brand new person." I literally said, "I feel completely different to how I felt this morning." And then she goes, then she told me that the Holy Spirit's basically cleansed you of like the things that you were struggling with. I haven't experienced depression. I haven't had like PTSD. I haven't like had trauma bonds. I haven't even touched a single drug since that day. And that's a miracle. Do you know what I mean? That is literally a miracle.